Okay, so I want to start with something I used to do myself most weeks for longer than I like to admit. It's 11 p.m., applications are due tomorrow, and I've got Airtable open because that's where the applications actually live. I've got a spreadsheet open next to it because somewhere along the way, we started tracking status there too, and it's supposed to match the Airtable, except it doesn't. Not exactly. And I never quite figured out when they drifted apart. I've got Slack open because the actual decision on one of the applications got made 3 days ago in a thread that's now buried under 40 other threads. And I've got Notion open because that's supposedly where the official version of everything lives. Supposedly. And I'm not working, I'm reconciling. Trying to figure out which one of these 4 places is actually telling me the truth. I did this more times, more nights than I want to count. And here's the question that took me embarrassingly long to ask myself. Is this actually a me problem? Am I just disorganized? Or is something else going on here? Actually, quick pause. In case this is your first time here, I'm Yaniv. I run startup systems. I've spent the last chunk of my career doing the actual hands-on operations work for accelerators and innovation programs, the job behind the job. This is the School of Innovation, and most episodes here are me taking one question I get asked constantly and walking through what I've actually tried, what worked, what didn't, and what I've learned from people who've been studying this stuff more rigorously than I have. And today's question is, how do you integrate your tools without drowning in data silos? Okay, back to the tabs. So I got curious, and it turns out, no, this isn't a me problem. It's close to universal. There's a peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Small Business Strategy, researchers who actually went and studied what happens inside business incubators and accelerators. And one of the things they found out is that programs like ours can lose somewhere between 30 and 40% of operational time to exactly this kind of thing. Not to bad mentorship, not to weak founder selection, to moving data between places that don't talk to each other, copying it, checking it, re-entering it, reconciling it. Read that back for a second. 1/3 to almost half of a working week not spent with founders, not spent on the part of the job that actually matters, spent being the human glue between 2 pieces of software that refuse to sync. And it's not 1 or 2 programs doing this badly. The typical accelerator or incubator runs somewhere between 5 and 10 separate tools at once. That's from a couple of the write-ups I found from people who cover this space professionally. 5 to 10. That's not a discipline problem. That's just the default. That's what running one of these programs looks like right now, unless you've deliberately built something different. Which was oddly comforting and kind of depressing at the same time when I actually sat with it. Comforting because it's not just me being bad at my job. Depressing because if it's this universal, it means most of us are quietly accepting it as the cost of doing the work. So naturally, what do most of us do about it? We buy a tool, which on paper makes total sense. You've identified a data problem, so you go find a data solution. I've done this. Sat in a demo, watched someone show me a slick integration dashboard, thought, okay, this is the one that fixes everything. Except here's what actually happens. The new tool doesn't replace the mess. It gets bolted on top of it, ripping out the workflow you already half understand. Feels riskier than just adding one more thing to the pile. So now, instead of 5 things to reconcile, you've got 6. There's a piece of research I think about a lot here. And it's not even about software. It's a psychology study from the year 2000. And you've probably heard some version of it. They set up a table at a grocery store with jam samples. One day, 24 different jams. Another day, just 6. More people stopped to look at the big display. Makes sense. More variety, more interesting. But when it came time to actually buy something, the people who saw only 6 jams were about 10 times more likely to walk away with a jar than the people who saw 24. Barry Schwartz turned this into a whole book later called The Paradox of Choice. And his argument, roughly, is that past a certain point, more options doesn't help you decide. It paralyzes you. Or it gets you to decide badly, just to make the discomfort of choosing stop. I think that's exactly what's happening when we go tool shopping to fix tool sprawl. We're not solving the sprawl, we're adding to the exact thing that's already overwhelming us and calling it progress because at least it feels like we did something. Or, and I've watched programs try this too, you go the opposite direction. Instead of adding another tool, you try to consolidate everything into one big all-in-one platform. And look, sometimes that's the right call, but a lot of the time, what actually happens is you get a quote of something built for a program 3 or 4 times your size. I've seen these run 5 figures a year, sometimes north of 20 grand, and you're either paying for a Ferrari to do a Honda Civic's job, or you're stuck endlessly customizing something too rigid to actually match how your program runs day to day. And then there's the move I think is the sneakiest trap of all, automation. Because automation sounds like the sophisticated answer, right? We didn't just buy a tool, we automated the workflow. Except, and I learned this one the hard way, watching a Zapier flow I'd set up quietly fail for about 3 weeks before anyone noticed. If the underlying process is broken, automating it doesn't fix anything. It just makes the broken thing move faster and more invisibly, with fewer humans left in the loop to catch it when it goes wrong. So, none of these are the stupid moves. Buying a tool isn't stupid. Consolidating isn't stupid. Automating it isn't stupid. But none of them actually work because, and this is the thing I eventually had to sit with, they're all answers to the wrong question. They're all shopping problem answers to what's actually a systems problem. So what's the right question? Here's where I landed after going around this loop enough times myself. Integration isn't about which tool you buy. It's barely even about tools. Integration means one specific thing. When something happens in tool A, tool B updates on its own. Nobody copies it over by hand. Nobody double checks it. It just happens. Most programs, mine included for a long time, don't actually have a tool problem. They have an architecture problem. 5 or 6 systems, each holding a fragment of the truth, none of them talking to the others. And the fix isn't a bigger tool or a smarter tool or even more tools. It's a single source of truth, one place where the program's actual reality lives. Applications, core data, milestones, mentor relationships, the numbers your board is going to ask you for in 6 weeks, not scattered across 5 places, 1. And most of the time, the tools you already have can get you there. You don't need to replace them. You need them talking to each other. Okay, so that's the reframe. Here's what I'd actually tell you to go do with it, because a reframe without a next step is just a nicer way to feel stuck. You don't need to redesign your whole stack this week. That's not realistic, and honestly, it's not even the right first move. What you need to do is kill one handoff. And to be clear, this isn't the automation trap from a minute ago. That was automating the mess itself, making 5 disconnected systems fail faster and more invisibly. This is different. Once you know where the truth actually lives, automating the connection into it isn't hiding the problem anymore. It's the fix. If you don't know where to start, and this is the one I'd point you to first because I've watched the ROI on it specifically, look at the moment where a form or an application turns into a record somewhere else. Application form to CRM. Wire that one connection so it happens automatically, and you're usually looking at something like 10 to 15 hours saved per cycle. More than calendar syncing, more than automated status emails, more than almost anything else you could set up first. If that one's already handled, go find the next manual handoff. There's always one. Fix that instead. Don't try to fix all 5 at once. You won't, and you'll just end up more overwhelmed than when you first started. I still think about those 4 tabs sometimes, and honestly, some nights I still end up back there. Old habits don't disappear just because you understand them now, but less often. And when I do end up there, I at least know what I'm looking at. It's not a me problem, and it's not a tool problem. It's an architecture problem, and it's fixable, one handoff at a time. If you want to go deeper on this, I actually built the worksheet I use for mapping this stuff, where the handoffs are, what order to kill them in. It's called the integration blueprint. That plus the tool stack audit is the kind of thing I write about every week in the ops brief. I'll add a link in the show notes.